And we're back. Anyone want to tell me a little bit about Unity so I can refresh my memory?
Do we want to tell you? I can
Yeah.
tell you. So all these things on the left are game objects, including the camera, which is where the player can see from. You can see when you select it, the box is actually what's visible in the frame, in the camera. So right now, if you were to play this as a game, you would see the bottom right, the platform doesn't seem to extend all the way. There's a little hole there, and you can see that in the preview there.
Eventually.
And eventually, at some point, maybe tomorrow, we can come back and see that. So the box is our player, and it has components attached to it that allow it to interact with other objects and interact with gravity. And it also allows you to press space to execute a jump, because we put the script onto it and attached it. And then the ground is a similar setup, except it doesn't have the movement attached to it, and it also is unaffected by gravity, so the box can fall onto it.
Stellar. Someone else walk me through a little bit about what we were doing in our script. Start with this. Just in simplest terms, what is this?
A rigid body 2D variable.
Bingo. This is a variable of the type rigid body 2D. It is named RB. I'm going to create a little comment just to make sure that's clear. 2 forward slashes will do that. A variable to hold a reference to the rigid body 2D component on our player game object. What about this one? I could see this one being tricky to put language to. This one is just a variable to hold a reference to the input action that we've, I'll say, bound to. Space for jumping. And that, in case you've forgotten, which would be very reasonable because you've seen this for all of 30 minutes. In project settings, under your input system package, you have a set of actions, and among those is jump. Anything under this jump action is a valid type of input that you can use to signal to Unity that the jump action has been performed. This is really great so that when you build a game, you can play it with a controller or with keyboard and mouse without having to have a different line of code every single time you want to be able to tell the engine, hey, this thing might work for jumping, this thing might work for jumping, this thing might work for jumping. You can just say jump and let this handle the rest. Let's see. What does the start function do? Say again? When you start, this code runs. So at the beginning of play, this runs how many times?
One time.
One time. What about update?
Every single frame.
Yeah, update is called once per frame.
So 60 per second.
Yes. Someone talk to me about what this line of code is doing. Someone who hasn't said anything so far would be awesome. Tyler, who would you like to hear from?
Christian.
Hmm?
Why did I get name dropped?
I picked a random.
Tyler wants to hear from you.
I'm trying to figure this out right now as well.
Cool. Anyone want to help him out? Yeah?
It assigns a value to RB.
Yeah, it gives RB a value.
It says RB equals that. So when we
Yeah.
say RB, we want it to think that.
Yes. What this is saying is every time we say RB, we're talking about whatever we get from running this function. This function is getting a reference to whatever rigid body 2D component it comes across on the game object that has this script. For us, that is our player. Our player has this script, and so this is looking for a rigid body 2D on the same game object. So it's going to grab this one.
And RB is just shorthand for doing that because we told it to be.
Right. RB is
Get
our,
component, rigid body 2D, every single time.
exactly. So I'm going to type a comment here. Gives our RB variable a reference to the rigid body 2D on the player. I'm just going to say GO for game object. And then this is doing the exact same thing for our jump IA variable. It's getting a reference to the jump input action from our input system. Right here. With me so far? Where did I lose you?
I'm still trying to figure out how to get the thing on the side to add the other things.
This thing on the side to add the other things in here?
Yeah, like the project settings.
Do you have this or you don't have it yet?
I don't have any of that yet.
Cool. If you don't have project settings, so if yours looks like this, go to Edit, and then all the way down to Project Settings. And then you can click and drag the tab over here.
I got my project loaded up. Because I wasn't sure if it was like, I made the project wrong. But
No, not at all. You're totally fine. And flag me down in the future. Don't let me carry on without you. There are not so many people in here that we can't all keep pace together. Even if there were, do it anyway. So yeah, in project settings, input system and package, we've got our actions and stuff. But as far as the logic and what this code is doing, is that stuff tracking well enough? Cool. An update, which we have established runs every frame. Anyone remember what this is doing?
It's checking
Exactly. This line is saying, hey, if the spacebar was pressed at any particular point, since this is running every frame, it's always listening for that input. And if that happened, then we run this function. And that function is doing what? Someone who hasn't...
Dang it.
I know.
My hand halfway up.
Who'd you like to hear from? Could also be you.
Deuce.
I'm still just trying to open my project.
It's still loading for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes a while to load.
Even more reason. Walk me through this. So this is a function, yeah? Can you walk me through as much of this as you can? And if none of it makes sense, then we'll start right here.
So like I understand a little bit of it because I took an engineering class in high school.
Cool.
So I know like some blocks, mostly just blocks and stuff.
Gotcha.
But I honestly don't know what like it really means. I just
Okay.
gotta put pieces together.
Cool. So we have our RB variable here, right? Which we have given a reference to our rigid body. We need that so that we can do physics stuff with our player. We're going to handle movement with physics so that it moves physically.
Best way to move.
I say so. We know we have equals 10, so we're setting something to that value. We're setting something to be equal to 10. And that is the velocity in the y direction for our rigid body. And it says linear here just as opposed to angular. So instead of it spinning at 10 units per second, it's instead moving linearly in the y direction at 10 units per second. Does that make sense, or would folks like for me to say it again but differently? Good. Anyone lost? It's okay to be lost right now. Just let me know you're lost. You lost? Hell yeah. So at which point did you get lost? Sort of up here? Cool. So the concept of a variable, how's that sitting with you? How are you feeling about variables just as an idea? About basically giving a name to a value so that we can say the name over and over instead of having to go and grab the value over and over. So let me think of...
What about like algebra?
Hmm?
It's the same concept as
Yeah,
like algebra.
it's definitely the same as in algebra, but
What were you trying to explain?
I'm trying to think about how to explain what a variable is in a robust but simple way. I generally talk about them in terms of being boxes. So you have a box that you've given a label to, and then you could put just stuff into that box, and then you just refer to the box anytime you want to use what's in it. So we say RB to refer to whatever rigid body component we need to talk about. Does that part make sense? Cool. For the input actions, it's the same thing, but we're just talking about this. We're just making it so that we can tell our code that we're talking about this. We don't need to worry about how this works right now. That's totally fine. It's just Unity has the thing called jump, and we're setting up a reference to the thing Unity knows about that's called jump. This is super busy, but it means this is the part of Unity that knows about jump. Jump is one of these and here's how we find the thing called jump. But we don't have to worry about that anymore because we're just going to call it jump IA. So we say jump IA anytime we want to talk about Unity's built-in jump thing. Once we get into here, this is going to run all the time. If Unity's jump thing was pressed, then we run our function. If this isn't true, so if the frame goes by and we haven't touched the keyboard, it's just going to skip from here to here and not run this code. But let's say we've pressed the spacebar, so Unity's jump thing says, hey, jump. That's awesome. Then we run this function that we set up here, and we want to do some physics stuff, so we use that rigid body component again. That rigid body component has a property, it has a speed, and we're setting its speed. And we set its speed equal to 10. I just chose 10. There's no reason that has to be 10. How are we feeling now? A little bit better? Cool. Feeling, question? Question? Say it one more time.
The void jump only runs when it detects a progression.
Correct. Void jump is, because it's not one of the built-in things that Unity has, this one's not going to run automatically. It only runs when some code in start or update tells it to run. That's why we have to write this in order to call it. That's a great question. There are only a few built-in functions like this where Unity will just run them, and we'll learn about more of those soon. For now, though, all we can do is jump, and that's only useful sometimes. Sometimes you need to strafe and jump.
That's important.
Yeah. So we're going to wait 7 centuries for the domain to finish reloading.
Step one.
Yeah, how are you?
In this weather, huh? Apparently it's going to snow a lot. That's cool.
Ice cold.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I hit play, we hit space, and we jump. And we can jump as many times as we want. There is nothing keeping us from pressing jump until
we input only listen if touching the ground.
we're,
I know that's not how it works.
I mean, it's not how it works. It's one way of doing that, but it's not how we're going to do it.
If in air, don't allow jump.
Again, not wrong.
Just not exactly right.
That's really, really similar to how Unreal's going to handle it. So
I'm
if it,
just imagining the most basic way.
You can work in Unreal too.
not in this class, but in the next course in Game Tech 1, you will.
Can't wait for that.
It's great. And if you hate code like this, it might be exactly your thing.
Well, I think a lot of these kind of make sense to me. You know?
I'm personally a big fan of C#, and I wish that I could write C# in Unreal, but I started in Blueprint, and I think that there's also a lot to be said for learning to program without having to worry about syntax.
Yeah.
So right now we have the jump action. We also have an action for move. So we're going to use that to get our character moving around. So back in our code, let's set up another variable for our movement. What should I write, do you think? Input action, and you had a suggestion for the name?
Move IA.
Yeah.
Just to match what we're already doing with jump and
Exactly.
keep it the same.
And then you might expect down here in start, we're going to set up that input action the same exact way, but instead of jump, we're going to write
Move.
move. Exactly. move IA is equal to input system dot actions dot find action move. Now, the thing to know about this is that while jump is a button, right, we can see if we click jump, action type button, that just means that you can press it and it says, hey, I've been pressed. But with movement, there are all kinds of different directions to movement and stuff. That's not a button, it's an axis. And so action type is value, and the control type is a vector 2. Vector 2 just means that you have an X component and a Y component because you can move laterally or vertically. So for us, I'm going to put this below the jump code. If we want to see whether we should move left and right, we're going to use move IA dot read value. And who remembers what the type was for this? It wasn't a button, it was a value, and it had 2 axes. It was a vector 2. Thank you.
I had a question, actually, I got stuck on it.
Sure.
Just when we put in what move IA is supposed to reference to, input system dot actions dot find actions move in parentheses,
Mm-hmm.
it's giving me an error.
Okay.
But I typed it the same. Yeah, there you go. I typed it just the same. The capitalization is the same. I got the same color. But like this ended up turning blue instead of yellow. Yeah, see right here. I typed it
That's outside of the code bracket.
oh yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it.
All right, so we have move IA, read value, vector 2. We need the closed parentheses, we need the fancy angle brackets and stuff. I mentioned last time, if we have something like get component, but we don't give it to a variable, it just falls into the void, right? We got the value and we did nothing with it, so it's useless and it dies terribly. The same is true if we just say move IA.read value. We're getting a value, but we're not giving it to anything. So we're going to need another variable up here. And this one is going to be this right here. It's going to be a vector 2. And that's because we're thinking about movement in the X and the Y directions. I'm going to call this movedir for move direction. And now we have a nice pretty box to put our vector 2 in. So movedir is equal to move IA's read value. Who needs me to say something differently? Or just again?
I'm just filling in some.
For the move direction, this is what the read value what we're setting for variable 2.
The movedir is the variable that we're going to use to hold whatever our current value is for our move IA. Move IA is a reference to the list of possible ways we could say to move. The input action stuff is really difficult to describe in a way that makes sense.
But it's also checking it every frame.
Right. This way, anytime there is input that's supposed to make us move, we'll be able to say we're supposed to move in this direction. That way, say, if we're holding D and W and we want to head up and to the right, move IA, read value vector 2, we'll say, hey, move up and to the right. And our move dir will have that direction, but we haven't applied that direction yet. That we still need physics for. And we're not going to apply physics in update, and this isn't a singular event like jumping, so we're going to need our fixed update for this. Okay. So it is still physics-based though, so what should I start with? What component?
Rigid body 2D.
Right. Our rigid body is the component we need for anything physics related. So if we want to, say again?
Specifically the 2D one. for the 2D
Right.
project.
And so we have our component. Now we want to, probably like our jump, set some property. We don't need to worry about its linear velocity in the y direction because we're handling that just with jump. If we got rid of the jump and we turned off gravity and we just wanted it to move all around the screen like that, then it'd be different. But all we're worried about is it's moving in the x direction, right? Yeah. So who wants to throw out an idea about what the rest of the line of code might look like? Or at least before the equal sign. Who would you like to hear from?
Object.
So if this was the line of code we used to set our velocity in the y direction, and we're trying to set our velocity in the x direction, what might I need to write here? I'm sorry? Sure. What we're going to want to put here, it looks almost exactly like this, except instead of the y-axis, we're looking at the x-axis. So it's linear velocity x. So that's the value we want to set here. What we want to set it to,
I put 5.
you put 5?
I put 5 because it's kind of
Hit play and tell me what happens. Actually, no. I'll
I
put,
already tried something earlier and I see what happened.
so if I put RB linear velocity x5, which means we're just setting the horizontal velocity of our rigid body to 5. Anyone who hasn't seen what his did, do you want to guess what happens? Did you see what happened?
No.
What do you think happened?
It's just gonna go forward. It's not gonna care which direction it
Right,
goes.
right. It's just going to move to the right at 5 units per whatever,
And then fall off.
and then fall right off the edge.
It just kind of slides like an ice cube. It just kind of goes. Especially if you could,
There it goes.
Bye.
And the reason for that is because that 5 doesn't change. It's not responding to our player's input. Yes,
Why did it jump when it got to the edge?
because I told it to.
Oh.
He pressed space.
I hit the space bar so that this part was still working just fine.
He wanted to make it cinematic when he jumped off the
Yes.
edge instead of slid off. Get it dramatized.
I'll be damned if I'm going to go down without flair. So 5 seems like a solid enough speed to go,
But it can't
but
just-
only when you want to move, and only in the direction you want to move. So we're going to multiply our speed by our direction. So move dir times 5, and it's mad because move dir is a vector 2. Okay, first thing here, let's just start with move dir. Move direction is a vector 2. It has that x and the y components, right? We only want the x component. So what we want to do here is say move dir dot x. And that's going to give us just the x component of that vector. This we can multiply by 5.
Oh wow, look at that.
And there we go. Now we've got a little dude bouncing around.
Oh, and it,
There's nothing stopping you from jumping as many times as you want.
yeah, you can also spin if you hit the corner.
Yes.
Now I have a spinning. Look, now I have a spinning too. You just hit the corner of the platform, and then the physics makes it.
All right. Who needs some extra eyes on their stuff?
No, just adjust the size of your platform. Like, see mine. I have a small platform just in the middle because I want to be able to fall off. Oh yeah. Wait, let me spin fast. Watch this.
Go to mine so it's a little bit easier to see. Do you have the live stream up?
Spin again.
I am actually going to ditch these comments because I think they make it harder to read.
I'm leaving them on there. I'm gonna forget.
That's totally fine. I encourage you to keep them on yours, but especially with as difficult as it can be to read code from across the room.
Yeah, adding extra can only help so much.
Yeah. Let's just do that.
Now we can't speak. Now we can't. And I just bounce there. You know what you could do now? You can make little parkour. You can make a whole little level.
Dude, this is exactly like Silk Song.
This is exactly like
This is a Silk Song reference.
literally what it is. It's literally.
This is Silk Song reference.
This is Silk Song on 144p.
Silk Song on the 3DS.
Yeah, the. I would love a Hall Night see or something.
I got the Minecraft movie copy.
Yeah, I used to too.
That's a lot.
Wait, it doesn't. Is there friction on the wall?
Yes, that's my favorite.
Wait, that's interesting.
This is just like Cornwall, Silk Song.
Yeah, with the
Wait,
wall
I
jumps.
can
Wait, you
see.
can wall jump. Wait, that means you can wall jump. Can you wall jump? Kind of. Wall jumping! We have wall jumping. Wow. What wonderful strides we've made.
Wait, and when you go on the left one, you slide down.
We have wall jumping and sliding. And climbing.
You can also do some really sick.
You know what I wonder? I actually wonder. I wonder if. I don't know what's going on. I wonder if. What is it?
Quick thing I didn't mention and should have because it happens all the time and I always forget. Don't put semicolons after stuff like void update or void start. Function names need to come above the curly brackets, and if you put a semicolon at the end of that function name, it won't work.
Busy for 15 seconds.
It really does happen every semester, and I always forget to mention it. So thank you.
Now do that. Oh, he's sliding? Look, he does slide. Wait, can he go Keep going. Oh, wait, he bounces off of it. I'm not joking. He bounces off of the.
You can also
When you change directions, he does a little hop.
upstairs, pause it where you need it and stuff.
Wait, because this just does X.
But I just forget, like, support keep that with moving it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's what I'm confused with.
I see.
Double jumper.
It's like I don't even know what I need to keep and what I need to
Spin.
I see.
Yeah.
For the videos, if you go back to them for reference, you can feel free to go to the very end.
He's part of the demo.
That's where we'll leave the code and stuff. And then if you don't know why some stuff is there, then backtracking might be the better way to do that. That's a really great point.
Oh yeah. I guess we know.
That sound.
It's just like all these.
Getting that stuff set up just like that.
How do I
could be
get
very
rid
much
of
that.
it? How do I get this? Where's that going? Yeah.
Sure. A vector is a collection of two numbers. In this case, a vector can have any number of. You know when you have a graph, you have your x and you have your y. A vector is just finding some place on there, a place with a particular x value, a particular y value. And for us, linear velocity x is just looking at this axis. So if we're trying to define it in terms of an x and a y, it doesn't know what we're trying to do. So we have to tell it to just look at the x component so that we can set our x component accordingly. This one is giving. This one's basically just listening for input from the player, and this is saying, now that we know what that input is, set our rigid body component accordingly. Yeah, when I say physics, I'm usually talking about physics.
New game coming out 2027. That's cool.
What's your custom move? Bring up arrows to press or whatnot.
I made a little parkour course.
Sure.
Made a little.
Both the arrow and CLU should all work. We should see it work. Because it won't work if you don't see it. If your code looks right.
Decrease my jump height so it's actually harder to. Set the Y value to 5. Save that.
Save mode exits automatically when all pilot repairs are done.
Reload the token. Which now it doesn't jump as high. Oh yeah. Now you have to double jump. Yeah. Wow. Oh. He doesn't fall. It takes so long to fall over.
How do I just click and drag to
Wait, look at him slide up the wall.
we also add components to type in the screen.
Ooh. Okay, I think I need like a velocity of 7. I have to figure out the jump height.
Hit tab. And it will go up, just like that.
Set to 7.
Let's go one line at a time, then hit there. So if we're
what would it be most helpful for me to either go over again or to talk about in a little more depth or to clear up if there's some confusion? What would folks benefit from the most?
A refresher on the difference between the private and
Awesome. So the difference between public like this and private like this, we don't currently have any public variables, although public variables are super common. Private means that the values and stuff we can only set and check within this script. Eventually we'll have scripts talking to one another, but we don't need every script to be able to access every value from every other script. And in those cases, we want to make sure that the variables we need to be able to share between scripts are public, and those we want to just belong to individual scripts will be private. There's also something called protected, which means that other scripts can read the values but can't set them. Okay. So we have movement, we have jumping. What if you don't want your dude to go 5? What if you want him to go a little faster than 5?
Just adjust the number.
You can adjust the number. What if you don't want to hard code the number? What if you want to adjust it once you're in Unity? Because change the number a little bit, saving, going back, waiting for it to reload everything, and then trying again, that's super annoying. For that, we can create another variable. This one, I'm torn because this should really just be a private variable, but I kind of want to keep this clean for readability. So I'm going to make this public. It's going to be a float. A float is just a number that can have a decimal. Has anyone heard of an integer? Cool. Integers just being whole numbers, positive or negative. Floats have decimal points. So a public float, we're going to call this move speed. We can give it a default value. We can say it's equal to 5. But by making it public, if we go back to Unity, in our inspector tab, we'll see that move speed shows up where our script is. And then we can change that from here without having to change our code. But there's a problem with it. Anyone catch what I didn't do?
You didn't
Put
make
it in
it
place
into
of 5.
Exactly. I did not say that linear velocity x should be affected by it. That's a silly goof on my part. So move direction times move speed, that is our velocity. Because all a vector is direction and magnitude. What?
Oh, I was just thinking about vector from Despicable Me.
direction and magnitude. Oh, yeah.
Still doesn't appear to be doing anything. Why is that? Move direction x times move speed is public, 5 by default. There we go. Does anyone feel like it falls really slowly?
Yeah, it feels like he's in like low gravity.
So this is what regular gravity is. This is 9.81 meters per second squared.
Or he's just really light. Or
It's no, it's just gravity is way slower than we think it is.
oh, really?
Most platformers use a gravity scale that is way beyond normal gravity. It would break our freaking bones. So we're gonna amp that up to a gravity scale of 8. And all of a sudden,
That's a lot stronger.
our jump strength isn't enough. So let's go back to our script. Well, I'm gonna first set gravity scale to 8 and then go back to my script. And in the same way that I have my move speed, I'm gonna create another public float for my jump. I'm gonna call it jump force. I'll set it to 10 by default. But then let's head on down to where we have our jump, and we'll replace that 10 with jump force. So are we sort of seeing where a lot of this is similar? We have things like speed and force that we might need to change for different stuff, and then we just bring it in and plug it in. We have different types of input actions that do different things, but setting up the variables are very similar. And that's kind of why I mentioned that stuff at the beginning is going to feel really fast, because until you know some of these patterns, you can't really do much at all, because the patterns allow you to do so much stuff. So by default, jump force 10, not enough. Let's amp it up to 50. Boing.
Whoa.
Let's amp it up to 200.
You know.
Yeah.
It was really interesting seeing the X value or the Y
Can
value.
you go back to jump force in the code?
Yeah, totally. Jump force is set up exactly like move speed, public float, name of the variable, and then equals its default value. And then in our jump function, we just replace 10 with our jump force variable. Whose code is giving the problems? Cool.
I promise you, none of you has code get you anywhere near the top side. Just use my own. Again, and you didn't make the jump.
Yeah, it's working.
It's still. For sure. Want to make it look cool?
I do have the ability to make code work just by getting close to you.
Yeah, his skill tree is kind of maxed out in the.
It's one of those weird perks that does not make any sense within the narrative of the game, but not mad at it. Okay. Who else would like some eyes on their code to make sure everything's on the right track? We feeling all right? Let's see.
Just tell him. Oh, look at the Y value.
Still climbing. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We're falling. And uh-oh.
Bounce?
It
He
didn't
bounced.
bounce. It
Oh,
didn't bounce.
He was going too fast.
Exactly.
He He was going so fast he phased through the ground.
Exactly. Because we're working with frames and physics only updates every so often,
He went in between.
from one frame or from one physics update to the next, there wasn't a chance for it to register this object that should stop it. To fix that, you can go into your rigid body 2D and under collision detection, change it from discrete to continuous. I'm also going to change interpolate from none to interpolate, and that just makes it move nice and smoothly.
What does interpolate mean?
Interpolate means that instead of jumping from one spot to another, it smooths the transition between the two. Okay, so we still boost into the sky, and okay, we're falling, we should though stop when we hit that. There we go. Ta-da! I'm gonna set this to 25. And set my move speed to 10. But we can also see what that interpolate looks like. See how it's a little jittery? But if we set that to interpolate, it's nice and smooth. Let's set that gravity to 6. No, I like 8. And let's do 30. Yeah. You may have noticed that if you make a change in play mode, like how I started this play mode at 500 jump force and stuff, but now I've changed it to 30. If I exit play mode, it sets the values back. So that's something to be aware of. I'm going to change this to 30, change this to 10.
Is that a setting you could change, or is it always going to be like that?
That is the default, just because things in a really complex game, you have so many variables being changed all the time that not having that reset when you exit play mode would make knowing what the game state is supposed to be a nightmare. You can change values like this, and say you wanted to keep that, you can copy the component.
And then when you exit, paste it back kind of as it was.
Yeah, just paste the values.
Paste the values.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. We still have 50 minutes if folks want some help getting caught up if they feel like they're behind. Okay. For the folks who are getting it, you mind helping? Let's get multiple eyes on folks' work. Because that's the best way to make use of it. First, Control S to save. And now just head on to Unity and hit play there. So the next thing that we're going to do is create a new scene by going to our scenes folder, right-clicking in assets, clicking create, scene, scene.
New scene created. Oh, wait.
And I'm going to call my new scene Canon. Actually, I'm going to rename that Golf. Save. This opens us up into a completely empty scene, except for a camera. I'm gonna create for myself. I'll give you my goal and then I'll walk through how I'm trying to accomplish it. I want to make a little ball that I can rotate and launch like a golf ball. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a little circle. So I'm going to right click in hierarchy, go to 2D object, sprites, circle. I'm going to call this ball. And ball it was. This ball does not currently simulate physics. That's a very disappointing kind of ball to have.
Yeah, not very fun.
So rigid body 2D, absolutely necessary. For the time being, I don't want to worry so much about gravity. I just want to focus on being able to rotate my ball. So I'm going to set my gravity scale to 0. So now my ball simulates physics, but it doesn't simulate gravity. I will add a circle collider to it. Now it can be hit, and it simulates physics, but it's not going to fall with gravity. If I were to rotate this circle, it would be really difficult to tell. So, say again?
So we put some kind of texture or design or something.
We could put a texture on it. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I'm gonna do something else. I'm going to right click on ball in the hierarchy. I'm gonna go down to 2D object, sprites, triangle. And I'm gonna call it dir for direction. And I'll rotate that 30 degrees. And I'm going to make it nice and small. And this process is known as parenting. The hierarchy makes it so that the ball, if it moves, dir moves with it, but dir can move without moving the ball. Here, let me demonstrate. If I select ball, I can click and drag that around, and dir comes with it. That little triangle comes with it. If I click dir, I move that, but the circle doesn't come with it. So if I apply physics to the ball, dir will come with it. But I can also rotate the ball, and dir will show me which way I'm pointing. So now I'm going to add a new script. But first I'm going to create a folder for my scripts for organization. I'll just click and drag player movement in there. And I'll right click and create a brand new script. I'm going to call it golf ball. And this is going to function really, really similarly to the other player movement. Yeah, what's that?
Can you say how to make the folder for the other script again?
How to make the other script? Or for the folder?
The folder.
The folder is the same way. You are in your assets folder, you right click, go to create, and then folder. And then you can just click and drag the script right in. So I'm going to go ahead and open up golf ball. And I'll reopen player movement. I want to use the A and D keys to rotate my golf ball. We already have code here that we have used to do basically that, but instead of rotating, it just moves left and right. So I'm going to copy a bunch of this code. I need the rigid body stuff because we're still dealing with physics. I need the move input action, so I'm going to copy that. It's mad. Does anyone have the foggiest idea why it's mad?
Wait, what's
I have an error here. Any idea?
my player movement is very mad.
This would be the first time that we've encountered this kind of mad, so it makes sense that you wouldn't have any idea. It's because we have not said using Unity Engine.input system. It doesn't know what this type is. So we need to say using Unity Engine dot input system, and then it'll say, oh, input actions, I know about those. I'm going to, yeah, I'll use movedir. And I want a version of move speed. But move and anything move, we're basically going to replace with rotate. So I'm going to change that to rotate dir and rotate speed. In start, we'll do the same thing with getting our components. This is still move. I'll just change it. Wrote IA, wrote dir, wrote speed. Big important thing. This still needs to be move, because we have not created anything in Unity that says aim or rotate. So this is just going to hook us up so that the inputs we use for move also apply for rotation. Update, we're going to use the same code for this. except it's rote-dir and rote-ia. And then fixed update. Copy that, slap it in there. Change rote-dir, rote speed. Now, that's linear velocity. That is not the same as rotation. What should we do?
Change it to rotation.
You have to lock it in.
If we change it to rotation, let's think about the possible values. Rotate direction can be -1, 0, or 1. We can multiply that by 5 to get a maximum of -5, -5, 0, 5. Those are our main values doing that. So if we set the rotation equal to that, we only have 3 possible rotations. What we want to do,
Does it increase by?
yeah, that's a totally viable option. We can say rotation plus.
To increase or decrease the angle, which would just spin it around.
Right. So we could say rotation. This is the shorthand for saying is equal to itself plus whatever's to the right.
Is that plus equals?
Plus equals. The longhand version would just be this. And now I realize that that's exactly the thing that you were telling me made it difficult to use the streams.
Which I'm really confused right now because I have everything in what we just did, and it's just doing the same thing that it was doing when I with the first one.
It should, because we haven't saved and played since we changed it to rotation, so it should just be.
No, I mean we're like moving.
I'll be there in a minute. Rotation equals current rotation plus the direction we're trying to rotate and the rotation speed, or times the rotation speed. So let's save, head back to Unity, and hit play. What a tremendous disappointment. What's wrong?
Everything is wrong.
It's not moving.
Hmm?
It's not rotating.
Well, sure, but I wrote my code. My code should work. I will sometimes say, I'll sometimes leave something out or make a mistake for the sake of a learning opportunity.
Did you do it again? I wasn't good. The disappointing test again.
Yeah. Oh no. It's not doing anything.
Did you set it to accept that input?
Yep. Rule number 1. If your component's not working, make sure the component exists. I did not add my script. Now.
Oh, I didn't think about that because I already did.
But it seems like it's rotating backwards. So instead of plus, we're going to say minus.
Now A should go to the left. B
Right.
should go to the right. Interesting.
You don't have fixed update. So you're just using the one-line code that actually applies that as we said.
You have all the data, just not doing anything with it. The other thing that we could do, instead of rotation, we could say the angular velocity is equal to this. I'm going to leave it how it was. I just want folks to know that that's also an option if you prefer to work in velocity. It's often a good thing to do. And most of the time, I will use the shorthand here. So instead of setting a variable equal to itself minus something or plus something, I would just say this. So I do want folks to see this and know what this means.
Let's start with the red one. Oh. So you moved the thing and then it was giving you a whole bunch of errors and stuff. Copy all of this just in case she just close.
All compiler errors.
Scripts and views and stuff are really, really finicky. So if no more errors, it looks like it's working. Make sure that's the, well, it's not. Couple plug in. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
I just finished my ball movements and now my player movements are angry. I'm trying to figure out why they're upset.
Scroll.
I haven't changed anything here. I just copied some of the things and edited them so they would fit the rotation instead of movement.
Yours did the same thing. It's weird. So let me super fast for all that. You have the two player scripts. You have one, two. This is the
Oh,
original.
it copies, it doesn't move it.
It's always moved it for me. I don't know.
I clicked and dragged it into there believing it would move this instance of player movement That's so
Were you in
weird.
play mode?
I don't believe, I may have been, I'm not sure. I don't
Because
think I was.
creating new assets at runtime, it will keep the asset.
Okay, that's probably what it was then. That's probably what it was. So now they shouldn't be upset. Great. Nobody's upset. Awesome.
Nobody's
Now I
upset.
have to go test out
Everyone's
my-
having a great time.
Now I have to rotate the golf ball.
And then last thing I'm going to do is
I think there was a question in the back.
what was that?
Are you making a new project for this one?
No. I just created a new scene.
Mine still has all of it on there, but even with the new scene, it's not really like yours.
I might have another issue with the next one. Come on. Just to make sure I'm
Yeah, I'm going to let you look at it for a minute.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'm going to do on this for the day, and then I'll just work on helping folks debug, is I'm going to make what is the golf equivalent of a jump, which is a smack. I'm going to make it so that my ball can launch. But I want it to launch in the direction it's aiming. Before, we set linear velocity y with jumping. I'm going to grab my code for, I'm not going to copy it, I'm just going to mimic it. Just private input action. I'm going to call it launch IA. And then instead of jump force, it'll be launch force. By default, we'll say 20. Then in start, any ideas? It's going to look just like this. But instead of jump IA, it'll be launch IA. And then in update, we have the same thing here. Of course, I'm going to have to change the jump IA to launch IA. And it's going to be all mad because I don't have a jump function in this. I'm going to create a function that's going to be a lot like jump, but it's going to be called launch. So we can see this is very, very similar with just a few key differences that change how it behaves. Launch, I don't want it to always launch up. I still need to change physics, so I'm still going to use my rigid body. But the velocity, linear velocity, can be a combination of up and it can be a combination of vertical and horizontal movement. So we're going to use linear velocity hard stop, not X or Y. And that we're going to set equal to launch force times the direction we want to aim. The direction we want to aim is whatever direction this is pointing, right? We have our triangle here. It points to the right. See this red axis? That is our right axis. So we need to launch. Okay. Yeah, it'll be easiest to understand if I do it like this. Game object dot transform. Because remember, all game objects have a transform. This is its position, its rotation, its scale, all of that stuff. It also has information about if I were to rotate this whole thing, what is the direction that this is pointing. So if this direction is x is 1, y is 0, pointing straight up is x is 0, y is 1, what is this? If we say game object transform right, it will give us that vector, that direction vector. So we can see it says the red axis of the transform in world space. So this is saying which way that red axis is pointing. And so as we rotate our golf ball, the direction that is pointing will change. And so our launch will also change in direction. Let's hit play and see how it looks. It works. So I'm going to grab my camera. I'm going to zoom it out a little bit. And then I'll create just a few things just for the sake of barriers. I know some of you have already created some of these for yourselves.
How did you zoom out the camera?
If you click the camera and you expand the component, you can increase the size. Cool. And now I can turn gravity back on for my ball. But you can see by using the same input actions, we were able to use space again and just reuse that linked up code. So it works for both jumping and for launching. It's all about how you handle the input. And now I have a delightful little ball that can go in whatever direction I aim it. It does have this direction thing that rolls with it, and I can't make it stop rolling, which is a little bit annoying.
But there's some kind of way you could turn it invisible while in motion?
It's the direction pointy thing, that is doing exactly what it should. The issue is that I kind of don't want the ball to have an angular velocity all the time, or, well, I want the direction to be independent of the ball's angular velocity, is really what the issue is. We're going to talk about how to do that, not today. We will talk about it. It's on my list of things to talk about. But my list of things to talk about today is done because there's been more than enough. So I'm going to end this stream